Hi, everyone. We are here with the AI localization think tank, and we are creating this video to reply to one of our Ask the Think Tank questions. We received this question from one person from the community that said, will we ever run out of linguists? And that is such a great question that I feel we've all been kind of wondering as well in the past couple of years. And we wanted to get together here with this wonderful group and give our, share our thoughts on that. So, yeah, let's go into it. And I would love to start with Bridget. Bridget, what do you think? Will we ever run out of linguists?
When I first heard the question, I had a question, and that was, what did the person mean by linguists, right? Because there are so many different roles and responsibilities that could fall under that umbrella. So then I thought, okay, I'm assuming that their person is referring to translators and interpreters, but even there, I feel industry-wise, we have a huge split. I mean, traditionally, those have been two different industries. And so I think we're going to have very different outcomes in those as well. So I'm going to settle on translators as linguists. And I think if they will run out or not, that depends on them, on how afraid or how eager they are to move into this new era. And that fear factor is really going to be greatly impacted by the choices and adaptations that they make as individuals and that the companies that they work for make. And I think that just try to summarize this too, I believe a very important detail here has to do with industry education and stakeholder education, which I feel is half of our job as a very, very obscure and hidden industry. There's so many different narratives right now, so many different opinions. Some are educated, some are painfully not educated. And I think unifying that narrative and making sure we are very clear about the tremendous amount of value that we bring will be a key factor to answer this question. I do think finally that 10 years from now, we're going to look back at this moment in time, this moment in history as a defining period, not just in our industry, but in the history of mankind. And so I think we need to give ourselves the grace and the space to accept that and to really react accordingly.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much, Bridget. And actually, I mean, we have some of those so-called translators in this think tank, luckily. So maybe ask them, do you feel afraid? How are you navigating this? I don't know. Will we ever run out of linguists, Stavrula?
It's a great question. I totally agree. My short answer is no. We won't run out of people with deep language skills. But what we might run out of is jobs that actually know what to do with them. And that's the real risk there. It's what Bridget also mentioned. The problem is not a shortage of talent, it's a shortage of value, potentially. We are looking at the erosion of professional environments and environments that recognize the value of the people, of the human mind. So what I'm seeing in the localization industry is that it's splitting into two worlds right now. On the one side, you have this idea of translation out of the wall, you know that, like electricity, that you can plug in and get it. This is also, nowadays, this idea is 10 years old now or more. But nowadays it's driven by AI. And for things like user reviews, basic support tickets, high volume, low risk things, machines are taking over. And in that world, the human role is definitely shrinking. And it's all about post-editing, managing the machines, orchestrating, you have different names for these tasks, so these roles, the new roles. And the demands are less of what makes a linguist special. On the other side, you have everything else. You have marketing that needs to persuade, legal documents where every word matters, movies that need to make you feel something, diplomacy, where one tiny mistake can cause an international crisis. And in that world, we can't just plug in into a machine. We need a human mind. And this reminds me also of you might have heard it. It's this guy from NVIDIA, the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen. He talked about the revenge of the English majors. It was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek, his comment, but his point is that knowing how to communicate with precision, with clarity, how to talk to these new AI systems, this is going to become critical, and maybe even more critical than knowing how to code. I don't know about that, but it's an idea that when it comes from such a person, you listen to it. Ultimately, it all comes down. It's a societal issue. It's not only for our industry. What do we value more? Do we want our communication to be fast, cheap, and good enough, or do we believe that true meaning, communication, understanding, human connection are worth investing in? So yeah, to sum up, I don't think we'll run out of linguists, but it's up to us, up to the society, the audiences, the users, the consumers, and of course the industry leaders to make sure we don't run out of a world that needs them.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Rula. And I mean, to have a different take on this, Jota, from a more tech-driven background, what do you think? Will
Uh,
we ever run out of linguists?
The answer is still no for me. Actually, when I read the question, when you sent it through, I basically, there's two ways to look at it. One is, I've heard it before, as will machines take over, is really basically the question. And the reality, as Stavroula said, I don't want to repeat everything, is that, the demand for translation jobs, for the traditional translation jobs, is plateauing or even decreasing. But we do have maybe even a bottleneck when it comes to qualified post editors and reviewers, because this work is still not standardized, I would say. People that actually understand both translation and AI. And in that sense, if you want to study translation, this is one of the roles that are there in bulk. So it's not like the jobs are shrinking, actually. They're just changing, in my view. And I do see machine translation, before AI and now AI, as tools not there to not to replace translators, but rather to support them. And of course, there are the cases, the plug and play cases that Stavroula talked about, but these were not the types of jobs that we were translating before. These were not the jobs that were available for translation to humans, most of them anyway. And of course, there are the specialized tasks like legal translation that really need the human insight and the expertise. And then in my field, media localization, you need a cultural sensitivity to preserve the artistic intent of a film and the emotional impact, or ethical considerations as in diplomacy or even medicine. And of course, there are a lot of new jobs, and many people that study translation actually like them. Linguists that are tech savvy, or localization engineers, or language data specialists. And all you have to do is do a job search on LinkedIn to see all of these new job profiles coming up. So what I do think is one of the skills for linguists of the future is that they will need to combine their language expertise with technology much more than in the past. In the media localization field, we always combined it with technology to an extent, but in other fields, not as much. And then the other question is, of course, that Bridget also talked about, is will people stop studying translation for fear that there will not be any jobs for them eventually, and they won't even bother entering the market. There was this survey among children, as high school students and primary school students, about what is translation, and interpreting, and they basically thought that translation is something that machines do, which I guess is a bit of our reality ever since Google Translate came into our lives. So to this front, yes, there is a little bit of a concern about the enrollments of students at university level to study translation. And this is something that we're tackling at the European Commission level, at the language industry expert group that I'm part of, and Balázs is also part of. And I'm sorry, John is not here with us as well today, because he's the one actually leading an initiative that we call a visibility campaign for translation, whereby we are we're running it for pupils, their teachers, and their parents to answer any questions like that they may have. Will AI take over? Will there be a job? So we can explain to them what is the status of the industry today, what careers they can expect, what skills they will need if they want to enter the profession, and basically generally support them in their decision to study translation and to enter the translation profession. Short answer, no, I don't think we will run out of linguists. I mean, if a day comes when we'll run out of everything, there are no jobs whatsoever, then maybe yes, translation won't be there as well. But I don't think that is something that I will get to see in my future.
Hopefully none of us, but let's see how things evolve. Thank you, Jutta. Super interesting thoughts there. And I mean, I also wanted to ask Tina now, because you're at the forefront of this disruption. You're an active premium, I would say, translator, offering premium quality services to your customers, and probably you've been impacted by this disruption, or you have more colleagues that you talk about this question: will we ever run out of linguists? So what are your thoughts?
Well, it's an interesting question, and at first I thought it's a simple question, but it isn't when you start thinking about it. I used to be called a subtitler. I'm now a linguist. My language is Norwegian, and it's what we call a medium-sized language with around 5 million speakers. In Norway, the use of English in academia has exploded over the last decade. Norwegian universities, about half of all MA theses are now written in English, and a quarter of all university courses are taught in English, and that worries me. I mean, what happens to our language when academic knowledge is developed mostly in English? How do we create and maintain Norwegian terminology if we stop writing in Norwegian? And my work as a language expert, that's changed, like you mentioned. I mean, I'm lucky. I haven't had to work with machine translation yet, but many of my colleagues now work almost exclusively as post editors. Are they still linguists? In much of Europe, translators are legally classified as authors, but recently we've seen efforts by some organisations to deny post-editors those same authors' rights. And that brings us two problems. One, post-editing rates are so low that people have to sacrifice quality just to make a living. And two, we're feeding poor quality language into systems that are then used by people who aren't language experts, affecting their knowledge, their understanding, and ultimately how they use their own language. And at this point, large language models can't reliably translate into Norwegian, let alone write it fluently. And yet this kind of writing is what we see more and more around us. This is the content that we're getting. So what's the impact on how people learn Norwegian on language acquisition, both as first language and as a second language? And I see myself as a custodian of my language, and I believe that we need linguists and experts across every field, not just when it comes to language. So we need them more than ever now. But if linguists are treated as expandable, it will get harder to make a living in this field, and fewer people will choose to become linguists in the first place. And the rule, I think it was you mentioned the term good enough, which is often used to describe the quality expectations of the client, and that doesn't help at all. It sets the bar lower and lower until true expertise is no longer valued, and quality becomes optional. But language isn't just a tool, it's identity, it's culture, it's how we think, and good enough simply isn't good enough. So back to the question, will we run out of linguists? I think there will be fewer linguists, but I think we definitely need more. We will need more in the future.
I love that, Tina. Amazing reply. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And well, last but not least, we have Balazs here, which I'm sure your mind is now like going all these different directions with all the amazing insights that our colleagues have just
Yeah.
shared. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm running these calculations, what not to repeat from whatever has been said before me. But I think it's important also to talk about how we frame these questions, how we talk about what's happening to us, and this is something that has been on my mind since pretty much since ChatGPT came online, maybe even before that. It's when we talk about what will happen. Will we run out of? Will something be done to us that causes linguists to run out? Then we give up our agency. And we need to acknowledge, and I'm talking as a linguist as well. I'm an engineer, but I'm also a linguist. I have a degree that says I'm a linguist. I write a lot, and I also have a past in publishing. So that's a lot of language I had to deal with in my professional life, and also what I have been looking at is if we have a situation like this, then what are the things we can control about it? So my question is not will we run out, but are we allow the world to do we allow the world to run out of linguists the same way as Stavroula put it? And there's a list of things that we can do to prevent this. So just yesterday I saw this post on LinkedIn. I can't give you a proper reference because it was promotional content, but this sentence caught my eye, that AI can replicate outputs, but it cannot replicate conviction, because it cannot convey the identity of the speaker, of the company that is talking about their story, and so on and so forth. And now we have all these AI-based gatekeepers in internet searches. And the paradox is that original human-created content gets through easier through these gatekeepers than AI-generated content does. And this is why we need to come back to the concept of the linguist. So I have a number of problems because I have a degree that says I'm a linguist. In my mind, traditionally, a linguist is a scientist who deals with the nature and the behavior of language, the relationship between humans and language, the relationship between society and language. And then this other kind of linguist that we keep talking about here is a craftsperson who works with language. He doesn't study language, but uses it as a tool, as an everyday tool. And then I can't help but, and this is where I get maybe provocative, but I think this thought has to be put out here. Here, this is also a situation of a kind of powerlessness here, because our definition of a linguist as a translator or interpreter is too narrow. And this is because what we call the language industry is also too narrow. You see, this is a derivative profession. We are exposed to the source material that we are given. We don't control the source material. We transform whatever is given to us. And especially in the corporate world, the creation and the localization of content is converging. It's becoming one process. And this is where I think one of the ways out, and I'm not saying it's easy, but we need to begin, as linguists, we need to begin to occupy space in the creation side of things as well. Because that is just as much language as everything else. Basically, this is from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Balazs. Thank you, everyone. I mean, I don't think I can add more to this amazing discussion. My hope is that we will not run out of linguists. I feel like language is what makes us special as species, and it's really what allows us to be what we are, because without language we would be just like rocks or something, I don't know. um, and it's something so important to humankind that I don't think we should outsource that completely to machines, hopefully, because what will happen to us if we outsource language to machines and we run out of linguists? I don't want to live in that world, honestly. So, well, thank you so much for listening. We also have some written answers in the website from those of our colleagues who couldn't join today. But hopefully this was a great answer, joint answer to your question, the person
And
who asked this. And yeah, thank you.
And one idea for our next our next discussion is what can we do so that we don't run out of linguists? I was very interested in what Bala said, that if we come from a powerlessness position, and we need to be thinking more about what we can do, each one of us and all together.
Okay, let's make part 2 of this video and we
Yes.
can elaborate on that. Thank you so much and see you around. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.